So I asked y'all yesterday what you guys think the most forgotten MVP season of the last 30 years was, and I got a lot of responses. I saw a lot of David Robinson's, which is understandable. Most people don't even know David Robinson has an MVP. I saw a lot of Dirk Nowitzki's, and I also get that as well. The man led the Mavs to 67 wins, however, it was all overshadowed after his team lost in the first round to the 8th-seeded Warriors. I also saw a lot of Hakeem Olajuwon's, a guy who was Defensive Player of the Year, MVP, and Finals MVP in the same year. However, there is one guy that I think is so forgotten that it just flies over your radar when you're even thinking about the most forgotten MVP seasons of all time, and that of course was none other than Tim Duncan in 2003.
DJ Khaled. Please Khaled, don't pair me or compare me, unless the said party is a rare breed. The stories I hear, they tend to mirror me. At this point now, rap is only therapy.
Welcome back to another video on the channel. Glad to have y'all back. Real quick before we get started, make sure to check the link in the description for a new episode of the Dish podcast featuring me, SDC, and Dom Church. We upload twice a week, and it would mean a lot if y'all checked it out. Again, the links will be in the description for that as well, and there will also be an end screen. But let's get back to the video. Tim Duncan in 2003 was just a different animal. Let me tell you that right now. This Tim Duncan is why we consider him as one of the top 10 greatest players of all time. But I think there is this misconception that people only put Tim Duncan in their top 10 solely because of team accomplishments, but that is far from the truth. It's seasons like 2003 that show that if Tim Duncan wanted to, and if he really needed to, he can carry a team like the best of them. However, it's his willingness to let his teammates succeed before him, because he knows that's what will win games, is what made the San Antonio Spurs one of, if not the most consistently dominant franchise of all time. But while Tim Duncan was drafted into a team with David Robinson and had Hall of Famers like Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker, and Kawhi Leonard in the later part of his career that he could legitimately lean on, this was not the case in 2003. While yes, in 2003, Tim Duncan did still technically have Manu, Tony Parker, and David Robinson, he had them all at the wrong part of their careers. David Robinson was 37 years old, missed 18 games in the season, and was averaging 9 points and 8 rebounds. Simply a shell of himself. Tony Parker was probably the Spurs' second best player, averaging 15 points and 5 assists, but mind you, this was a Tony Parker who was only 20 years old in his second year in the league, and he's counted on to be the second best player on a championship team. And Manu was a rookie averaging 8 points a game off the bench. Like I said, a shell of what he'll later be later on in his career. And with these circumstances, Tim Duncan led the Spurs to a league best 60-22 record, winning the MVP for the second year in a row, averaging 23 points, 13 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 blocks on 51% shooting from the field. The only other player to have these numbers is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, the only one. Look, Duncan's regular season was already impressive enough. He led the Spurs to 60 wins, won the MVP, had historical numbers with less than adequate talent outside from his coach, but I don't hear anyone talking about how dominant he was in the playoffs. And personally, I think it may be the most dominant playoff run in the last 20 years. And honestly, the only thing holding me back from pushing it to as much as the last 30 years is Hakeem Olajuwon's performance in 1995. But you can even make a case that Duncan's 2003 playoff run was still more dominant. In the first round, he faced the Phoenix Suns. Now, they were nothing special. Amari was a rookie, they didn't have Nash yet, but that wouldn't stop Duncan from dominating them. Duncan would average a simply ridiculous 19 points, 16 rebounds, 5 assists, and 3.5 blocks, including Game 6 where he put up 15 points, 20 rebounds, 10 assists, and 4 blocks. This man, Timmy, gotta relax. Now, the next round is probably the most impressive performance of Duncan's amazing career, and it's a performance that is so overlooked solely because it's in the second round. And in this round, he faced none other than the Los Angeles Lakers. You know, the team that is looking for their 4th straight championship in a row. The team with 2 top 5 MVP candidates that year in Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal. The team that beat them in 5 last year in the same round. Yes, that's the team that Tim Duncan and the Spurs faced this round. and the Spurs would beat this dynasty in 6 games, and Duncan would simply dominate, averaging 28 points, 12 rebounds, 5 assists, and a block. And the thing that I found most impressive about this series was that no one really choked on the Lakers. With Dirk in 2011, you could legitimately say that if LeBron stepped up, the Miami Heat would have won that series. Kobe still averaged 32 points, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists. Shaq still averaged 25 points, 14 rebounds, 4 assists, and 3 blocks on extremely high efficiency. But Duncan and the Spurs just flat out beat them. With the series tied 2-2, Duncan would drop 27 points, 14 rebounds, and 5 assists to give them a 3-2 lead. And in the closeout game, in game 6, 37 points, 16 rebounds, 4 assists, and 2 blocks on 64% shooting from the field, flat out ending the three-peat of the Los Angeles Lakers in one of the most dominant fashions we've seen. And then in the Western Conference Finals, they faced the Dallas Mavericks. Yeah, you know that whole thing about Duncan leading his team to a league best record 60-22 record? I kinda lied. I'm sorry. Don't dislike this video. Because the Mavs also won 60 games that year and had the best offense in the league, also being led by one of the greatest players of all time and one of the most unstoppable forces of all time in Dirk Nowitzki. And if y'all think Duncan dominated last round, you can argue that he was more dominant against this team, as the Spurs would beat the Mavs in another 6-game series, and Duncan averaged, again, a simply ridiculous, I'm gonna say ridiculous a lot in this video, but that's what he did. He averaged 28 points, 17 rebounds, 6 assists, and 3 blocks. Oh my goodness. And it wasn't like Dallas's defense was bad. They had the 9th best defensive rating in the league, on top of being the number 1 offense in the league. And he dominated like this? That's crazy. And now in the finals, facing the number 1 defense in the league, it's crazy. It's crazy to think about. But Duncan may have even gotten better from the last round. Yes, even better. 24 points, 17 rebounds, 5 assists, and 5 blocks. That is what Tim Duncan averaged in the 6 games he played in the finals in 2003 against the number 1 defense in the league. I don't even want to talk about the whole summary. Let's talk about it on a game-by-game basis, because this is simply ridiculous. Game 1, 32 points, 20 rebounds, 6 assists, 3 steals, 7 blocks. Game 2 was probably his worst game of the series, but he still had 19 points, 12 rebounds, and 3 blocks. Game 3, 21 points, 16 rebounds, 7 assists, 3 blocks. Game 4, 23 points, 17 rebounds, and 7 blocks. Game 5, 29 points, 17 rebounds, 4 assists, 4 blocks. And Game 6, the closeout game, 21 points, 20 rebounds, 10 assists, 8 blocks, in which there is a whole video on YouTube explaining how Duncan actually got a quad dub in this game with 10 blocks. You would have to be playing on rookie to put up these types of numbers in 2K, and you still might not even get them, because it's extremely hard to get 4, 7, 8 blocks in one game, even in 2K on rookie. And Tim Duncan did this on the biggest stage of them all against the number 1 defense in the league in real life. What Tim Duncan did this season was phenomenal and does not get talked about enough. In fact, I think some people literally forgot about this year as a whole. Like, I'm not joking, I'm not exaggerating that. I know what the meaning of literally is, because I put up a poll on Twitter for 3 hours yesterday asking people how many consecutive finals appearances did Shaq and Kobe go to before Shaq left. And let's just say way too many people got the wrong answer. I know I only did it for 3 hours, but the reason I did this was because I know some of y'all are gonna reply that what kind of question is this? They went to 3 and then lost to the Spurs. Some people are gonna reply that, and people are gonna see those replies and answer the right answer. So I wanted to keep it as short as possible, but still long enough. That's why I did 3. But more people thought that the Lakers actually went to 4 straight finals, instead of the reality that they won 3 and then got beat by Tim Duncan and the Spurs. Like, people have legitimately forgotten about this. And I'm gonna keep it 100. For the longest, I low-key thought this way too until like a couple years ago. And the fact that it's this forgotten is simply a disgrace. A season in which Duncan put up numbers only one other player in history has ever put up. A season in which Duncan led the Spurs to 60 wins in arguably the toughest conference of all time. A season in which he did that with the second best player being a 20-year-old Tony Parker, putting up 15 a game. A season in which Duncan won MVP and was a top 5 in Defensive Player of the Year voting as well. A season in which Duncan put up 19 points, 16 rebounds, 5 assists and 3.5 blocks in the first round. A season in which Duncan dominated and put an end to the Lakers three-peat. A season in which he dominated and beat a 60-win Mavs team led by Dirk Nowitzki in the Western Conference Finals. A season in which Duncan put up unfathomable numbers against the #1 defense in the league in the finals and won finals MVP is literally forgotten by a good amount of people. Forgotten by so many people thinking the Lakers went to 4 straight finals. Forgotten by so many people that didn't even think of this season as a candidate for one of the most forgotten MVP seasons of all time. That, sir, is how forgotten it is. And of course, it would be Tim Duncan. But with that being said, I hope y'all enjoyed this video. Shouts to Tim Duncan, man. He is, in my opinion, he is so underrated. And once again, go ahead and check out the Dish podcast. The link will be in the description for that as well. But with that being said, I am out. Peace.